So have you been thinking about stepping out onto the practice range and worried that it might cost you a ton of money? Have you been wondering about exactly how much gear and equipment you need to have to become a golfer to get started? Fear not. You probably don't need as many things or need to spend as much money as you're thinking. So we're going to discuss exactly what you need to get started today, right now. Let's do it. So no doubt about it, golf can appear to be, and to an extent it really is, an equipment intensive sport. A lot of the equipment that you see or you may view people watching other golfers have, they've accumulated along the way. So it's not like they went out and purchased everything all at once. So the great news here is that we can begin with just a few essential items to just get us started and get going. And we're going to discuss those right now. Okay, so those first items, golf clubs. Now, needless to say, we cannot strike a golf ball without a golf club, right? But to get started, if we're going out to the range to experiment a little bit or anything like that, you just need one or two clubs. And I always suggest what we would call some of the shorter or middle irons, maybe a 7 or 8 iron or even a 9 iron or a pitching wedge. Nothing too extravagant. Like I said, one or two will just serve you just fine. Now, it's important, particularly for ladies and children, to make sure that the clubs are not too long and they're not too heavy for you, because as you're learning, one, we want to make sure that we're trying to learn with correct form, but more importantly, if the club is heavy for you, your technical form will break down very quickly. But it'll be hard to tell because you really won't know because you're a new golfer. So we want to try to make sure that we're getting appropriate clubs for, like I said, especially for children, women, and perhaps more senior golfers. So that's really important. Now, if you are starting off with your first in a lesson or instruction with a teaching professional, definitely ask them, because they may have access to clubs, some clubs that you can use during your instruction time with them to help you get started. And for sure, if you're doing that, they'll be appropriate for you, not too heavy, not too short, not too tall, that type of thing. So make a point to ask that. Now, if you have decided I'm a golfer and I'm ready to go, and you're ready to make an investment in some clubs, but maybe you're not quite sure or ready to make the big jump into a full set of clubs. Again, fear not, you don't need a full set of clubs right now. So if you're going to buy a beginner set, there's just a few clubs that will really serve you well. We'd certainly want to begin with having a putter, because we're ultimately going to use that, a sand wedge, and a pitching wedge. Those will be labeled S and P, all likelihood, on the club. And maybe one or two irons, maybe a 7 iron and an 8 iron. What we call hybrid clubs. Maybe one of those that would be great, a hybrid, a fairway metal, as we call them now, maybe a 5 wood, a 7 wood, or even a 3 wood. One of those would be great. And then what would be labeled number 1 club, more commonly known as the driver. If you have that set up, so that you could start without comfortable set being maybe 5 to 7 clubs, you'll be great. You won't need much more than that to get started. So that's item number 1, golf clubs. So if you have more than 1 or 2 golf clubs to carry, you're going to need a golf bag. And it's important to think of your golf bag as your headquarters or your own personal golf central for all things golf. It's obviously what we carry around when we're out and about playing and practicing. Now, golf bags come in all shapes, forms, and sizes. If you are just beginning out and you kind of had that setup that I talked about just a few moments ago, you certainly don't need a massive, what we call cart bag, to carry all of that. But when you're out shopping or looking online, just be sure to pay attention to the size and the dimensions and begin to compare and look at some things so you can find one that works for you. They come in every shape and color and pattern and style and material even. So it's cool. You get to choose a variety of pretty good options out there. One of the important things to note is that take a look out and make sure that the bag has plenty of pockets. I mean, all golf bags will have a reasonable number of pockets, but I will tell you this from experience. The more pockets, the better, because as time goes on, you will find that you have more and more things. However, When there are just a few pockets in the bag to dump things into, you can become very disorganized very quickly. And there's nothing worse than having to look for something while you're out on the course, because we have this thing called pace of play, which we'll talk about at some point. That's very important. So we want to be organized all the time, and a golf bag will help you to do just that. Number 3, golf shoes. Now, while golf shoes are great, and you definitely want to make the investment in golf shoes as time goes on. If you're just getting started and you're just wanting to kind of wade on into this golf thing and make sure that it's really for you, and don't want to stretch the budget, fear not. You can get started and go quite a ways in the beginning of your journey without golf shoes. I have many clients who just get started wearing their comfortable trainers or the cross trainers or even their running shoes, but a comfortable athletic shoe that will allow you the flexibility and movement that we need as we're developing and practicing our golf swing. That's the key things. Now, you'll find that over time that the value of the golf shoe will become apparent, because golf shoes offer us support in many ways in terms of our movement, our lateral movement, but also traction and some things. But fear not again. You can certainly get started wearing some good old cross trainers or a running shoe or a regular athletic shoe, and you'll be just fine. Golf attire, clothing. Obviously, we have to put that on every day as we step out into the world. Now, the requirements can vary dramatically based on where you are. At a municipal or a public facility, they're going to be, in all likelihood, very tolerant of what you wear, and pretty much are going to have what we call a come as you are policy in place. As long as it's appropriate coverage on the human body and, with barring a few other reasonable requirements, it'll work for them. Now, when we get into semi-private and private country clubs and exclusive resorts, there is definitely going to be a dress code in place. Now, it can have some variation from club to club, but generally speaking, golf clothing, though we wear bright colors and patterns and that type of thing, are pretty consistent in the requirements for just the style of attire. Ladies, we have the option of oftentimes wearing a collared shirt and sleeveless at times, but if it's sleeveless, then it's going to have a collar. Skirts cannot be too short. It's a lengthy list, but not overbearing. But note that it is definitely not unrestricted, come as you are. And again, definitely check with the facility at which you're planning on participating to make sure that you're in adherence with the dress code before you arrive, because at many places there is no option. You will not be permitted access. And if you are, it will only be to step into the clubhouse to immediately purchase and put on something that is in alignment with the club's dress code. So clothing matters. For the gentlemen, kind of the same rules apply. Collared shirt, whether it's long sleeve or short sleeve, and that type of thing. One other thing to note about clothing as us with golfers is that because we endure all types of weather, we may begin around in the morning where it may be cooler, more damp, and it may finish in the afternoon where it's bright and sunny. We tend to dress in layers that provide us with the convenience and comfort of being ready for whatever the weather may throw at us, but also for flexibility. Again, it may start in the sun and finish in the rain. It may be a rain shower in between, a couple of holes. We can cover it all in the course of one round of golf. So we tend to dress in layers, and we're prepared to meet the dress code of the appropriate facility. One other important point when it comes to our dress: always be prepared with a hat or a visor and even sunglasses. Remember this: the sun is always shining, even if it's behind a big batch of clouds. And we have to be so mindful to protect ourselves from the sun, because golf is, of course, a daylight sport, that it's important. So whether your preference is a visor or a hat, a baseball style cap, golf cap, or wider brim, straw hat, whatever your preference is, I encourage you, and really encourage you, to always wear facial protection by way of a hat or a visor. And don't forget that our eyes need that protection too. So good eyewear with sun protection built in is a must as well. What's the one piece of equipment that we use every single time we swing a golf club? It's the golf ball. So let's talk about the golf ball a little bit. Now, of course, if you are headed off to the practice range or driving range, There'll be plenty of balls there. You just need to bring a little bit of cash or your credit card or whatever the case may be, and you will have access to all the balls you need. Now, if you're headed out into the course, remember that you are responsible for bringing your own golf balls. And I've worked with many beginners and witnessed many beginners in their first time or first few times out on the course. And this is the one thing that I've always noticed. They often underestimate the number of golf balls that they may very well lose during those first few times on the course. The course, remember, is fraught with what we call hazards in fun situations that if you've been practicing on the range so far, you really haven't encountered. And so we're dealing with not only the terrain, but new situations, hazards. We're learning about distance, all those types of things. So it's only natural that you're going to lose a few balls. Do not feel bad when that happens. But to alleviate a little bit of that anxiety, I encourage you to bring plenty of golf balls with you. And with that said, that's why it's important to not worry about purchasing what we call a premium golf ball, because make no bones about it, higher end golf balls can get pretty pricey, right? No need to pump $50 into a dozen of golf balls right now, right? So what you can do, there are plenty of great options. There are plenty of high quality balls that are available to you to come in all types of colors and patterns. It's amazing the cool stuff that's out there right now that you can get for a very reasonable price point. And then there's also what we call, which is one of my favorites, X-outs. These are balls that have a very minor cosmetic blemish, not a technical or mechanical blemish within, but a cosmetic blemish, and the manufacturer cannot sell it at full price. So they call it, the label will have what literally over the label a few X's, we call them X-outs. These are fabulous golf balls that you'll get at a fraction of the price. And oftentimes X-outs will come in big bags, so you can buy a very nice sized bag of them. Again, remember I said we need plenty of them to have with you. You don't have to carry all of them, but at least some of them, so you don't have to worry about losing them. Most golf balls come in what we call a dozen. Some brands and some types will come maybe with 18 or even 24 to a pack. But for the most part, we are purchasing dozens. So I would say if you're heading out to play some holes, the rule of thumb that I use for new and beginning golfers is this: bring a ball and a half per hole that you're going to play. So if you're planning to play 9 holes, 9 times 1.5, I'd say just to be safe, bring 13 or 14 golf balls with you. I know that sounds like a lot, but trust me, you don't want the tension of worrying about losing golf balls when you're out for your first few fun outings out there to just learn and grow in the game of golf. So with the exception of those few golf balls that we might lose, your investment in the items that I just mentioned and discussed above will serve you for a long time. Again, those are not disposable items. You'll have the golf clubs, you'll have the golf bag, the shoes, the clothes, so on and so forth for quite some time. That's the great news. So are you ready to get out there and going? Let's do it. See you soon.